The journey of self-realization begins with the understanding that the ego, the self-centered identity we cling to, is the root cause of our suffering. It is crucial to recognize the role the ego plays in creating separation, jealousy, anger, fear, and greed within us. The ego drives us to constantly compare ourselves to others, seek validation, and accumulate material and emotional security. To truly be free, we must initiate a process of non-cooperation with our ego, which will lead to a profound inner transformation. When we look within, we discover that the root of our problems lies not in external circumstances or in other people, but within ourselves. No one is truly harming us. It is our ego that reacts negatively to situations and people. Even those who we perceive as enemies can in fact be seen as allies in this journey toward inner freedom, for they challenge our ego and bring to light its need for control and superiority. At the heart of this understanding is the realization that the ego, the I that seeks to assert itself in every situation, is an illusion. The ego thrives on identification with the body, the mind, and external accomplishments. It constantly seeks attention, approval, and dominance, creating a cycle of attachment and aversion. The more we identify with this egoic self, the more entrenched we become in a life of dissatisfaction, fear, and conflict. The ego operates on a very basic principle: survival. In its efforts to preserve its identity, it sees others as competitors or threats, leading to feelings of jealousy, anger, and resentment. It is the ego that convinces us that we are separate from others, that our worth is tied to our achievements, and that we must defend ourselves against the world. This creates a false sense of separation from the divine essence within us, which is the true source of peace and joy. Yet, despite its relentless pursuit of validation and control, the ego is never truly satisfied. It constantly wants more recognition, more security, more power, and in this never-ending quest, it blinds us to the truth of our own nature. The ego leads us to believe that happiness is found in external things, when in fact true happiness arises from within, from the realization of our inherent unity with all of existence. The first step in transcending the ego is to recognize its presence in our lives. We must become aware of the ways in which it manifests in our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Once we have this awareness, we can begin the process of non-cooperation with the ego. This means consciously choosing not to engage with the ego's demands for attention and validation. Non-cooperation with the ego does not mean repressing or denying it. Rather, it involves observing the ego with detachment and understanding its patterns. We can start by questioning the thoughts and beliefs that arise from the ego. Why do I feel the need to prove myself? Why do I react with anger when criticized? Why do I seek approval from others? By examining these questions, we can begin to see through the ego's illusions and loosen its grip on our consciousness. This process requires patience and persistence. The ego is deeply ingrained in our psyche, and it will resist any attempts to dissolve it. It may even try to convince us that we need it to survive, that without it we will be vulnerable and lost. But as we continue to observe the ego without judgment, its power begins to wane. We start to see that we are not the ego, we are the awareness behind it. When someone criticizes us, the ego's immediate response is to defend itself, to justify its actions, or to attack in return. But if we can pause and observe this reaction, we can begin to understand that it is the ego that is threatened, not our true self. The true self, our divine essence, needs no defense, for it is beyond judgment and criticism. By embracing criticism and adversity, we can accelerate the process of ego dissolution. We can learn to respond with humility and openness rather than defensiveness. This doesn't mean that we should accept all criticism without discernment, but rather that we should use it as a tool for self-inquiry. What is this criticism revealing about my ego? How can I use this situation to transcend my egoic reactions? As the ego begins to dissolve, something remarkable happens. The divine essence within us, the pure awareness that is our true nature, begins to shine forth. This is not something that we acquire through effort. It is something that is already present, waiting to be uncovered. The more we let go of the ego, the more this divine light reveals itself. This is the essence of true freedom, the realization that we are not separate individuals, but manifestations of the one universal consciousness. As the ego disappears, we experience a profound sense of unity with all of existence. We no longer feel the need to assert ourselves or defend our identity, for we have transcended the illusion of separateness. In this state of pure awareness, there is no longer any distinction between self and other. There is only the divine presence expressing itself through every form. Emotions are merely illusions created by the ego. They have no basis in reality, for our true nature is already whole and complete. The more we identify with the ego, the more these emotions take hold of us, leading to suffering and conflict. But as we begin to dismantle the ego, these emotions lose their power over us. We realize that there is nothing to fear, nothing to be jealous of, and nothing we truly need. This doesn't mean that we will never experience these emotions again, but rather that we will no longer be controlled by them. We can observe them with detachment, recognizing them as temporary states of mind that arise from the ego's illusions. And as we continue to practice non-cooperation with the ego, these emotions will gradually fade away, leaving us in a state of inner peace. Once the ego has been sufficiently dissolved, a profound shift occurs within. The inner sun, a metaphor for the true self or divine consciousness, begins to shine forth with full radiance. This shift is not contingent on past actions, karma, or moral judgments. Regardless of whether someone has been considered good or bad in society's eyes, the moment they turn inward and recognize their true nature, the light of awareness shines brightly. This inner transformation does not depend on external conditions or past deeds. It is available to anyone who sincerely seeks it. The divine essence within is always present, waiting to be realized. When this realization occurs, all past mistakes, wrongdoings, and regrets are dissolved in the light of awareness. The ego's narrative, its attachment to the past and future, no longer holds any power. The ego thrives on the illusion of separation. It convinces us that we are isolated individuals, disconnected from the greater whole. This belief in separateness is the source of much of our suffering. We see others as competitors, enemies, or threats, rather than as fellow expressions of the same divine consciousness. Yet, as we begin to dismantle the ego, this illusion of separation starts to dissolve. We realize that we are not separate from the world around us. We are intimately connected to every being, every object, every experience. This realization of unity is the essence of true spiritual awakening. The journey from ego to unity is the journey from darkness to light, from ignorance to wisdom. It is a journey that each of us must undertake in our own way, but the destination is the same for all, the realization